My name is Diletta Burini, and with great pleasure, I'm going to present the second of 5 lectures, the result of an important teamwork. Here, we provide the technical derivation of the mathematical theory presented in lecture 1, transferring the philosophical concept into mathematical structure. Living systems are made up of very many entities interacting with each other. Mathematical structure should include interactions that have a nonlinear additive character. This justified the choice of the poster of the Jules and Jim story, who, due to their love affairs, had interactions of a nonlinearly additive nature, to say the least. The first step we follow is the scaling problem. From micro to macro scale with the middle representation at mesoscopic level. The dependent variable in the micro and the macro scale is deterministic, while in the kinetic theory approach, it is a probability distribution function over the microscopic state of the interacting entities. The kinetic theory approach appears the most appropriate one to describe the collective dynamics at large of large system of interacting individuals. The number of interacting entities is a key problem because it is finite and not large enough to justify continuous approximation. As already mentioned in lecture 1, there are some pioneer papers and books where some class of systems have been addressed. Prigogine and Hermann developed the kinetic theory of vehicular traffic. Paveri Fontana put in evidence that humans may have a way of thinking which is heterogeneously distributed. The idea has been applied by Jagger and Siegel in social dynamics of a sort of population of insects, and how interactions split the society into dominant and dominate. Nicola Bellomo, in collaboration with Guido Forni, studied interaction between tumor cells and immune system, then included mutation, selection, and competition, birth and death. The first book we mentioned concerns the modeling of complex biological systems with a kinetic theory approach. Bellomo, Bellocchid, Gibelli, and Autada organizes the new mathematical theory of living system, and it is still a very current bibliographic reference in the field. The very last result is delivered in this open source essay, where we propose the theory and present some applications. We are going to consider a large system only in the spatial homogeneous case. Let's denote the state of the system by a distribution function, considering birth and death. U is the internal variable of the active particle, which can be a vector. Let's remark that in order to simplify the representation, the distribution function does not include the space. Interactions are modeled by evolutionary stochastic games, which corresponds to competition, cooperation, learning, hiding, chasing. These 4 situations are explained in the next figure. In competition, the 2 players change positively and negatively their state. In cooperation, players try to share part of their activity approaching each other. Hiding, chasing, one is approaching the other, and the other goes away, trying to hide the opponent. In learning, one player is fixed and the other continues to improve his state. There is not a mathematical theory for stochastic game fully consistent with this mathematical theory, but we use it at technical level. Why stochastic? Because players are not individual, but probability distributions. The payoff is motivated not only by rational strategy, but also irrational strategy. Now let's talk about how interactions are modeled. Each particle has a sensitive domain. An individual may be sensitive not only to other individuals, but also to the macroscopic behavior as a whole. Sensitivity cannot be fully symmetric, either in the activity U or in space. Who are the players of this game? Test particle, which is representative of the whole system for each functional subsystem. Candidate particle, which by interaction with the field particle can acquire the state of the test particle. Let's remark that interactions are non-linearly additive, can be multi-scale, and can be non-symmetric. Without going into further detail, we invite the interested reader to go to our open source paper mentioned in the initial bibliography. The framework for the derivation of the model. First type of interaction, candidate with field particles. Interaction rate is directly proportional to the relative velocity, and interaction depend on the activity and on their distribution functions. Second type, candidate particles with a k-functional subsystem represented by the mean value. The field is full population. We use lower order moments. The very first approximation is represented by the mean value. Interactions provide transition state. We look at the probability density that the candidate particle reach the state of the test interacting with the field. Such a probability depends on the interacting pair, but also on their distribution function. A candidate particle from the H functional subsystem can proliferate in the I functional subsystem, which is the one we want to study. Destructive events, death, take place in the test functional subsystem. This figure summarizes the interaction dynamics. Candidate may change state, but also can move to another functional subsystem. This is the mathematical structure in the homogeneous case. We have a balance of particles in the elementary volume of the activity space. This structure is similar to the kinetic theory, but now interactions involve the distribution function and not only the microstate. This is a system of integral differential equations which involve the terms described above. So in the end of the story, we need a mathematics for a living, multi-scale, evolutionarily, nonlinear world.